Good evening from London. My name is Vikas. Today we focus on a subject which is quite near and dear to so many of our hearts, and that's to do with giving. And I use the word giving intentionally as opposed to philanthropy, because a lot more of us can perhaps relate to the word. Now, I'm always telling you that I've been fortunate to meet so many incredible people during my career. And a lot of them have had an influence on my thinking on various things. And today's guest, she and I have had this engaging dialogue on the future of giving for quite some time. And I'm delighted that she's joining me from Florida. So my friend's name is Carrie Morgridge, and Carrie is the chief disruptor, as she calls herself, of the Morgridge Family Foundation, which is their family's foundation. And what I've really valued about Carrie, and I want you all to know, is, you can sometimes enter an echo chamber when it comes to these kinds of discussions. And you talk to the same kinds of people time and time again, you get the same kinds of views, you get the same kinds of stimulus. And what Carrie did for me was really did shake me out of it. And since then, and her impact, really did result in me thinking my role and my future actually in the world of philanthropy and giving very, very much. And so please welcome my friend Carrie Morgridge. Carrie, welcome.
Hi, it's such an honor to be here and to see you. I love seeing you.
You're very kind. I wish you'd tell that to my wife as well. But Carrie, in terms of we're at this very poignant time in America, we should start off with the situation in America. And yesterday we had the inauguration and so forth. Tell us a little bit about how that made you feel yesterday.
I felt hopeful. I felt united. We've been screaming off of the rooftop. Our foundation has looked back for the past 10 years, and every single investment we've made has started in community. From investing in arts to poverty, to hospitals, to museums, and all of that. But that's what takes a community. It's all of it. It's not just one individual or one organization or one corporation. It's all of us, and we each have unique gifts to give. And so those unique gifts need to be honored. And especially in a world of technology, the timing couldn't be better for you to be you, but for you to have a voice. Most people now have a voice because of the internet, because of social media. So I was really hopeful for what our new president said, for how people came together. And I loved how they focused, the inauguration focused on the American worker and the American dream. And that is still alive and well in our country because we still have the freedom to free speech. We still have the freedom of choice. We can choose where to send our kids. We can choose where to live. And those liberties have to be protected. So again, we were pretty divided, and we're still pretty divided right now. And shame on our news media, shame on them, because I think they might get an ego boost or exhilaration from poking the honeypot instead of talking about what's working. And then they'll claim to talk about what's working well, and then they go back to poking the honeypot. So that's just my take.
And so, when you are quite rare as a philanthropist in that, an American philanthropist actually, in that you actually fund and engage with NGOs and communities outside of America as well as in America. Mm-hmm. I know of some of your work, for example, in India, which has been a huge catalyst to work there. But tell us specifically about American education and what is the state of affairs over there at the moment?
So America education is definitely going through a huge change. And what Morgridge Family Foundation is fighting for is that your tax dollars, our tax dollars, should follow the child. So that parent who knows what's best for their child could follow the child. Right now we have a system that's 50% broken. And if you were a corporation and you were 50% broken, you would go under. So why do we continue to fund our schools that can sometimes only produce 3% graduation rates? Why is 50% dropout in high school acceptable? This is not acceptable at Morgridge Family Foundation, and it's not acceptable in the corporate world. So why is it acceptable in education world? So we're working on how do we empower educators to do what they need to do for the student. And I think, how do we cut through that red tape? How do we allow our great educators who every single day are going to battle for our kids and they know more about the kids sometimes than the parents do? How can we help them help our students? And one way, definitely technology is going to play a huge role in this. And the cream is going to rise. But not all kids can learn online. They need that face-to-face. They need that hug. They need that social emotional that educators give. And it's why they get in the business.
And so, Carrie, we've talked about this at great length. And of course, I wanted to speak to you regarding what's happened in America. But you are somewhat, through not just being a practitioner, but you've actually been a thought leader in the space of the future of giving, as I've termed it over here. And so can you tell us a little bit more in terms of what that looks like in a succinct fashion? And please remember that the audience here is primarily comprising educators from around the world.
Sure. So Morgridge Family Foundation is always trying to look at where the puck is going, not where the puck has been. And it's a huge Wayne Gretzky, who is a very famous hockey player. He would always say he was so successful in the National Hockey League because he was looking at where the puck was going. And so at Morgridge Family Foundation, we got behind interactive whiteboards in the classroom. And that turned into Share Fair Nation. And Share Fair Nation then, because it turned into a little bit of global, Share Fair Nation turned into MindSpark Learning. So any educator out there today can go on mindsparklearning.org and learn about what we're doing for educators. And we have free resources for you right now for you to use in your classroom for today and tomorrow. The most important thing I can tell you about MindSpark Learning is you need to make your classroom authentic. And what that means is the future of education, just like the future of giving, when looking at where the puck is going, has to be talking about authentic lessons. You can't just say today we're going to learn physics. You have to put the reasoning behind why physics is amazing and awesome and great, and then add that energy into it, and then really go out and hit physics with a purpose. There are so many reasons that kids need to understand physics, but you have to explain it to them, and then you have to show them the authenticity of it. So that being said, MindSpark Learning has come up with a model called a problem-based model. And what the problem-based model does is you actually take the corporation that's in your own city, you bring them into your school, and then the kids have to solve a problem that the real corporation is grappling with. Believe it or not, our kids can really step up to the plate. Our kids have that curiosity, and they have the internet now, so they can do a ton of research where they couldn't do it in the past. And then when kids feel that they are part of the movement, of part of the solution, they become more engaged and their learning goes up, because when they're engaged and they want to learn, they learn. And it's a great tool to have. So we started looking at what is the authenticity that's being taught in the classroom alongside the ABCs. And that really shed a light on so many of the things that Morgridge Family Foundation does. So much so that the only projects we fund in education in the K-12 sector is through MindSpark Learning. We've impacted just a little bit over, 600,000 educators so far. One of the most important things is who are your partners, right? So this year, MindSpark Learning got together with IBM and started teaching educators how to teach artificial intelligence in your classroom. So if you want to learn more about that, that also is a resource online, and we could start teaching you what IBM wants from their workforce. And why not start there? Why not start with what the workforce needs in the future? We also know this. I did a report called The Future of Giving in VCAS. I hope you put it up. It's a free report for anyone that ever wants it about what is going to happen with giving. And in the Future of Giving report, we talk about diminishing societal trust. And if you want to work on diminishing societal trust, you can start today in your own classrooms. It's authentic. It's real. Let the kids step up with you.
It's like what Manal says, who has commented actually on our LinkedIn channel saying, purpose is not always activated in classes, right? Which is, I think, part of what you're talking about. One of the things, Carrie, that I attempted doing many years ago was I thought, when I started in my last job where we met, one of the things that I focused on or tried to focus on was, in our schools, how do we imbibe giving for that next generation and put it into their DNA? How do you inject it into their DNA so they grow up with giving as part of their DNA? Do you have any tips for educators on here, how we can achieve that?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, Jane Goodall probably has the best how to give back in your classroom. It's called Roots and Shoots.
Yes.
She's already in 140 countries. But what I love about the model is that she set it up so that every school just adopts 2 miles around their school. And the kids study and learn about the habitats that are going on right in their own backyard that they didn't actually even know existed. And then they start to put the parallels together between like pollution and trash and environment, and it kind of all clicks and it all comes together. There's also a ton of activities for you to do with your own student on there. There are so many resources now out there because of the internet that are opening up on a daily basis on what you could do with your classroom or how you could get involved. So it's definitely goes back to that point that I was making about having your classroom be authentic and supporting teachers in any which way we can. The other thing is, if you don't have technology in your classroom, you're kind of dead. I couldn't imagine doing my job without technology. I couldn't imagine a teacher doing their job without technology anymore.
So, Carrie, there's a teacher from the Bronx, Stephen Ritz, who you may have met actually in Dubai. He's asking, are you looking for partners or co-collaborators or for folks solely interested in using the tech offered? What would be your response to him?
We're always looking for partners and we're looking for innovation. I have met Stephen in Dubai because he's from Wisconsin.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Right? No, he is a great STEM educator. And I loved his energy. And I fully remember because I sat next to him or I sat behind him a couple of times, and he's just full of energy, and God bless him, right? To continually year after year and day after day, have that great energy in your classroom and not to get cynical when there are barriers that sometimes close in on teachers, and they have to jump over those hoops and those barriers. So he's doing a great job. We're learning new stuff every day. And all I can say is we put out as much as we can free resources for our educators every day. And if he has resources, we want to know about it because that's how we're going to be better together.
And so I'm surprised you got to look past his cheese hat. And he's saying, I have the hat on right now. So there you go. That's interactivity for you, huh? So Carrie, one of the things that you were quite remarkable in was doing something that not many people like doing, which is admitting failure and actually learning from that failure. And so, what I wanted to ask you was, and we could speak hopefully not too long on this because you don't have that many failures, but, how would you describe your failures?
So I'll tell you a quick failure, and then MindSpark Learning is a failure into a success. It's about pivoting and reiterating until you get it right. But we were strongly invested, up to $10 million invested in a reading program called Reading Recovery in the United States. And I went to our educators because the data came back that not all of our students were either staying with the program or they were dropping out. And we were spending a lot of money on it. So I wanted accountability. And in that accountability, what we learned is that the kids that were at the bottom 10% that we were helping educate actually had more problems than just learning how to read. They were dealing with medical issues, issues at home, whatever their issues were, put on the table. So they said, you know what we really need is a school nurse. So John and I went to our local health department, Denver Health, and we provided 5 full-time, full-day nurses. Now this over a 3-year runway, because you do everything in runways to give everybody a chance to really sink their teeth into it. That runway, we saw over 1,600 different students at each school. And then we saw their family members, and the school was becoming the health hub for the community. So we knew it was working. However, there was a blocker in the superintendent's office, and she wanted nothing to do with our program. So one day, this mean, evil, horrible woman walked in and ripped out all the computers from our school nurses. And every school nurse, to make a statement about how awful she was, all quit on the same day. Now, we had served 1,600 times 5, is like 7,000, 8,000 students, and their families is who we were serving in low-income areas. You could imagine how important this program was. And our reading scores were starting to go up. So I wasn't strong enough to fight the system back then. If it had happened today, I would have come out with my guns blazing. I'm just a different person. I just didn't have that confidence back then to always fight for what's right. I now fight for what's right when I have to. But we try not to fight in philanthropy. That's one of the things, is we want everybody on board. So now when we do a project, we make sure that everybody has a seat at the table and everybody is on board before we start to do something that's truly disruptive. And when we find the blocker, we actually ask for a meeting and we tackle it head on. So on my success story, failure to success, we were putting in interactive whiteboards across the state of Colorado. And they were being very successful, but we were also at a time where we were kind of peaking out, and we found that teachers really wanted one-to-ones. So we were training educators through this program called Share for Nation, but I wasn't equipped. I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator, and I'm not a superintendent. So I was not equipped to run that organization. So I finally found the right CEO. Her name is Kelly Loth. She started a STEM school in the state of Colorado. And here's the awesome part. When you think of yes and in your vernacular, not only is she the CEO of MindSpark Learning, she continued to stay on, and she's still the STEM educational coordinator at her district. And she does both jobs. So you can make things and create things together and not have it be yes and no, not have it be black and white. Make it a yes and.
Well, thanks a lot for sharing that, Carrie. And I know that we're coming up to our time today. You also, being an activist in your own right, a chief disruptor, as you call yourself, you do have some criticism of philanthropy. Maybe criticism is too strong a word, but certainly ways that you would do things differently as a sector. Can you tell us a few of those kinds of insights that you can share, that you've come to the conclusion that actually the world would be a better place if philanthropy actually approached problems in a different way?
So most philanthropists are philanthropists because they're entrepreneurs at heart. And if you go all the way back in history, the most successful businessmen are our most successful entrepreneurs. If you look at what's broken in our country right now, it's all of our state-run programs. It's not their job to be innovative. It's our job. It's not their job to create something new. It's their job to sustain something old. And so we have some very old, antiquated systems in our country that desperately need to be changed. And that is going to happen through great philanthropy, because we have entrepreneurs willing to take risks. And we have entrepreneurs now willing to take risks to start charter schools. We have entrepreneurs to take risks to back educators. And we're now seeing entrepreneurs taking risks to change systems. And that's what it means by disruption, is that we're not willing to stand for the status quo the way the government does. The government is there to help people, but they're not there to be creative and innovative And times have changed, and we have got to help government systems change into the future.
Well, Carrie, on that note, thank you so much for your time here today. There is a few questions which, if you permit me, I will point you to them on the LinkedIn profile, on the Facebook group that perhaps yourself and John and your colleagues can go and perhaps engage with. Because I know there's a huge appetite with what you said, looking at the comments that are there. But please know that I'm very grateful to you personally, and for also for appearing on this live stream. And I look forward to perhaps inviting you back on if you have the time later on this year. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.